Welcome back to the Lights Out podcast, bedtime stories for boys and girls around the world. Good evening, boys and girls. Are you ready for bed? Are you all snuggled up and ready for another Lights Out bedtime story? Well, you're in for a treat tonight because we have part 3 of Sarah, the girl who imagined her mum and dad back. And if you remember from part 1 and 2, Sarah's mum and dad didn't come back one night, and she was going hungry and a bit scared. And she closed her eyes and she squeezed so tightly. And when she slammed her hand down on the table and opened her eyes, first there was some chocolate, and then there was some cereal. Part 3 of The Girl Who Imagined Her Mum and Dad Back by Martyn Kenneth. Once upon a time, Sarah didn't sleep a wink that night. Her mind was ablaze with all the possibilities and imagination of what she could do and how she could do it. And so, it was the middle of the night. She got up, turned on all the lights, sat back down at the table with a bowl, spoon, and a box of cereal. And in her mind, she wanted a bowl of rice, just a bowl of white rice. And she sat there at the dinner table with her eyes closed tightly, and so tightly that the tears started to run down her cheeks. But they weren't tears of sadness. There were tears of hope. She must have been there for about 15 or 20 minutes, but after squeezing and closing her eyes so tightly and focusing on the tiniest details of the bowl, of the rice, of the smell, of the heat, of the steam coming off the fresh white bits of rice, she opened her eyes. She could actually smell it before she opened her eyes, and there, in front of her, in the cereal bowl, was a hot, steaming rice, just as she'd imagined. Just white rice, nothing else, but that was enough. That's all she needed. She didn't need anything else at all that night. She was very, very satisfied after eating a full bowl of white rice. Now, after this, hour by hour, day by day, Sarah's fear began to fade away. Her hunger began to fade away as she could think about and imagine any kind of food. And there it was in the bowl. If she wanted a pizza, she would sit there with a bowl, her spoon, and a box of cereal. Sometimes, if the meal was very special, it might take 30-40 minutes of squeezing and crunching her eyes up. If it was a piece of toast, it might take 5. But as the days went on, as she practiced and practiced, the time it took to imagine up some food got shorter and shorter. Now you might be asking, why did she need the bowl and the spoon and the cereal box to imagine a piece of pizza? That's because Sarah didn't know where the magic was coming from. You see, the first time that she'd imagined that piece of chocolate, she was sat there at her dinner table on the chair with a bowl, with her spoon and with a cereal box, and she didn't want to lose the magic. She didn't want to try it without the box, without the bowl, or without the spoon, because she didn't know where the magic was coming from. Now, it was about a week after the summer holidays began, maybe 10 days, and she'd been doing her homework all this time. But now she'd ran out of paper, and she thought to herself, can I just imagine food, or could I imagine a piece of paper to do my homework on? And she tried. She sat down. She got the bowl and the spoon and the cereal box and sat in her position. In her mind, she focused and imagined a nice white piece of paper, and she squeezed her eyes. And when she opened after a couple of minutes, there, lying flat on top of the bowl, was a crisp piece of white A4 paper. Magic, she thought. Now, after she finished her homework that night on a nice clean piece of paper, she looked at a tatty old pencil and thought, if I can do it for food and I can do it for paper, can I do it for a pencil? And so she sat down again and she imagined a brand new 2B Staedtler pencil, a yellow and black one with a rubber or eraser on the top. She squeezed and opened her eyes, and nothing was there. She tried again, and after 12 minutes she opened her eyes, and there in the bowl was a brand new, very sharp Staedtler black and yellow 2B pencil. Yes, she thought to herself, I've done it. And the next day she did her homework with a nice new pencil and 3 bits of pink paper. Soon she had a new pencil case, a new ruler, a new rubber, an eraser, lots of pencils and all the paper that you could ever need for a summer holiday's worth of homework. Now, it was about 3 weeks into the summer holiday, and Sarah, feeling very brave and without much fear, thought to herself, I want to go outside, but I don't have a key or a card. You see, her mummy and daddy had taken them when they'd left and they hadn't come back, so there was no card or key. She thought. She was trying to imagine, trying to remember what the key card looked like, but she couldn't. And she couldn't remember the name or the words on it. And she tried to. For 1 full day she sat there, but she couldn't imagine a key card for the door. And then she had an idea, and she ran to her mummy's room and looked in the album, and there it was, a picture of her mum holding up the key card on the first day that they moved in. It was the same one, looking brand new on the picture. She took the picture, sat back down with the cereal bowl, the ball, and the spoon, and she put the picture and laid it next to the cereal bowl, and she stood there and she focused right on the picture, on the card, and she looked at it, and then she closed her eyes and squeezed. And when she opened her eyes, there in the cereal bowl was a brand new key card for the door. She picked it up and she ran. She opened the door and she tried it, and the door opened. Written on the back of this new key card, was the number that her mum had written on it when they moved in, so she wouldn't forget it. There it was, clear as day. And so, day by day, week by week, Sarah started to go outside, go down the elevator to the shops. And before she went out the first time, she sat there and imagined some money. And little by little, the money came into the cereal bowl, and she used it to go to the shops. And day by day, and week by week, the things that she could imagine got bigger and bigger, and soon she could imagine CDs, games, clothes, hats, books, money, you name it, she could imagine it. All she would have to do is sit there on the chair with the cereal box and the bowl and the spoon in the right place, squeeze, and think about it, until a tear rolled down her cheek, and usually, when she opened her eyes, there it was in the ball. Now, she was careful not to imagine big, heavy things in case it broke the ball or even the table, so she didn't want to imagine a big TV or a car or anything like that. Then, it was time to go back to school. The summer holiday had ended. Sarah was quite confident and quite looking forward to going back to school, but there was just one problem. Her mummy and daddy weren't there, and so when the letters started coming in to be signed by her mum and dad, maybe there was going to be a problem. Maybe people would find out that she'd been living by herself for the last 2 months. That's the end of part 3 of Sarah, the girl who imagined her mum and dad back. Stay tuned for part 4 tomorrow. And I think part 4 is the final part. Anyway, that's Sarah, the girl who imagined her mum and dad back, here on the Lights Out podcast. Bedtime stories for boys and girls around the world. Good night.